Walter from the Emergency Coordination Center. Please listen closely and follow these instructions. This is not a drill. If your dog starts watching shadows or tracking movement you cannot see, immediate action is required. I'm speaking to you tonight because we're receiving an unprecedented number of reports about unusual pet behavior across the tri-state area. As Director of Animal Behavioral Research, I've spent the last 17 years studying these phenomena, and what we're seeing now defies everything we thought we understood about the patterns documented in 2007. Starting 3 days ago, July 15th, our emergency hotlines began receiving calls from pet owners describing their dogs exhibiting intense fixation behaviors toward empty spaces, shadows, and apparently vacant areas of their homes. The first report came from the Henderson family in Millbrook County, whose 6-year-old golden retriever, Rusty, spent 14 straight hours staring at the corner of their living room where 2 walls meet the ceiling. When I say staring, I mean absolute, unwavering focus. No blinking, no movement, just that fixed gaze that made Tom Henderson tell his wife, "It's like he's watching something we can't see, and it's watching him back." What's particularly disturbing is that these aren't isolated incidents scattered randomly across our region. We're seeing clusters, patterns that suggest coordination. The quarantine facilities we established after the 2007 events are currently housing over 3,000 animals exhibiting similar behaviors, and Dr. Jennifer Reeves at Facility Alpha reports that the animals seem to be responding to the same invisible stimuli simultaneously, even when housed in separate soundproof chambers. Let me share what families are experiencing, because these accounts will help you recognize the warning signs in your own pets. A couple on Granger Hill reported that their normally social Labrador mix, Bailey, had positioned himself in their hallway and refused to move for over 6 hours. The dog's head tracked slowly from left to right, following something moving along their ceiling that neither owner could see. Sarah Chen described the experience to our dispatch team. His ears kept twitching like he was listening to something, but our house was completely silent. When I tried to call him away, he didn't even acknowledge I was there. It was like he was protecting us from something only he could sense. Later that night, more calls came in from Pine Valley. The Yamamoto family woke to find their Shiba Inu, Mochi, sitting perfectly still in their 3-year-old son's doorway. Kenji Yamamoto noticed that Mochi's entire body was tense, every muscle coiled like he was ready to spring into action, but his eyes never left a specific spot about 7 feet above the child's crib. "I followed his gaze," Kenji told our operator, "and I swear I felt cold air coming from that exact spot, even though it was 80 degrees in the house and all the windows were closed." When Kenji tried to move the dog, Mochi let out a low growl, the first aggressive sound he'd ever made toward a family member. In another case from Clear Creek, Rosa Garcia called emergency services when her Maine Coon cat, Princess, had been sitting motionless in the same position for 12 hours, staring at the space between their refrigerator and kitchen wall. What disturbed Rosa most wasn't the staring itself, but the fact that Princess was positioned between Rosa's sleeping daughter and whatever she was watching. "She never left that spot," Rosa explained. "Not to eat, not to use the litter box, nothing. It was like she was standing guard. But against what?" The most unsettling report came from Dr. Patricia Wong, one of our facility veterinarians, who was conducting routine behavioral assessments at Quarantine Facility Gamma. During her evening rounds, she discovered that 47 different animals, dogs, cats, even a few rabbits, had all oriented themselves to face the same direction within their enclosures. Every single animal was staring at the facility's eastern wall with identical intensity. "I've never seen synchronized behavior like this," Dr. Wong reported. "These animals have been isolated from each other for weeks, yet they were all responding to something in perfect unison. When I tried to redirect their attention with food or toys, they wouldn't break focus. It was like they were all seeing the same thing, and that thing was more important than anything else in the world." We have identified these common stages based on reports from over 200 affected households. Stage 1, which we're calling heightened alertness, typically begins with your pet becoming unusually attentive to specific areas of your home. They may sit or stand in one location for extended periods, tracking movement along walls, ceilings, or empty corners that you cannot observe. This stage can last anywhere from 6 to 18 hours. Stage 2 involves what witnesses describe as protective positioning. Your pet will place themselves between you or your family members and whatever they're observing. They may refuse to leave this position even when called or offered food. Dogs in this stage often exhibit physical tension, raised hackles, rigid posture, or that particular stillness that indicates they're ready to defend something. Cats typically position themselves at elevated vantage points while maintaining their fixed gaze. Stage 3, which we're seeing in approximately 30% of reported cases, includes defensive behaviors. Your pet may begin low-level warning signals, quiet growls, hissing, or positioning themselves to block access to certain areas of your home. They're not responding to you during these episodes, but rather to whatever they're perceiving in those empty spaces. If you observe any of these behaviors in your pet, please follow these safety instructions immediately. First, do not attempt to physically move or redirect your pet when they're in a focused state. Multiple families have reported that forcing their pet to break concentration resulted in the animal becoming extremely agitated and, in some cases, temporarily aggressive toward family members they'd never shown aggression toward before. Second, pay attention to where your pet is positioned relative to you and your family. If they're placing themselves between you and a specific area, respect that positioning. We're developing evidence that suggests your pet may be responding to stimuli that pose some form of threat, though we don't yet understand the nature of that threat. Third, monitor the duration of these episodes carefully. If your pet maintains focus on the same area for more than 8 hours, contact our emergency hotline immediately. Do not wait for the behavior to resolve on its own. Fourth, and this is critical, do not investigate the areas your pet is watching. Do not touch walls, corners, or surfaces that seem to be the focus of their attention. Several families have reported experiencing dizziness, nausea, or what they described as wrongness when they made physical contact with these locations. Based on communications from Colonel Sarah Mitchell, our military liaison, the quarantine protocols we established are currently holding steady, though we're processing new cases at a rate that exceeds our projections from 2007. What's particularly puzzling is the timing of this outbreak. Our research indicated that any recurrence of these phenomena should not have occurred until approximately 2067, based on the 43-year cycle we documented previously. The fact that we're seeing this resurgence now, in 2024, suggests variables we haven't accounted for. I should mention that our investigation teams briefly looked into reports about local inventor Dr. Heinrich Poof, who was allegedly conducting backyard experiments with what he calls a pet attitude adjuster Mark 7. After reviewing his homemade contraption, which he funded with $47,000 from his wife's inheritance, we can confirm that Dr. Poof's device is completely unrelated to the current outbreak. While we appreciate citizens reporting unusual activity, Dr. Poof's tinkering appears to involve nothing more than modified dog whistles and disco lights. The broader pattern we're observing suggests that whatever triggered the 2007 events has awakened again, but with expanded parameters. We're seeing affected animals from bloodlines that showed no previous involvement, which contradicts our understanding of how these phenomena typically manifest. Dr. Reeves has documented neurological readings that continue to defy explanation, with brain activity patterns that should be physiologically impossible for the species we're monitoring. What concerns me most, based on my 17 years of research into these events, is that the animals aren't exhibiting distress about what they're observing. They're not cowering or trying to escape. They're watching with the kind of focused attention typically reserved for prey animals monitoring predators, but their body language suggests they're prepared to defend rather than flee. This protective instinct, combined with their ability to perceive threats we cannot detect, indicates that something in our environment has changed in ways we don't yet comprehend. I want to be clear about the current risk level. While we don't fully understand what your pets are responding to, their protective behaviors suggest they're serving as an early warning system for something that poses a genuine threat to human safety. The fact that they're positioning themselves between you and these invisible stimuli should not be dismissed as simple anxiety or behavioral quirks. This message will repeat every 2 hours on this frequency. If you observe the behaviors I've described, or if your pet's protective positioning escalates to active defensive behaviors, contact the Emergency Coordination Center immediately. Our teams are monitoring the situation around the clock, and we will provide updates as new information becomes available. Remember, your pet sees something you cannot. Until we understand what they're protecting you from, the safest assumption is that they're right to be watching, and you should let them watch. Do not dismiss their vigilance as imagination. In my experience, when animals maintain this level of focused attention on empty spaces, those spaces are not as empty as they appear. This is Dr. Marcus Calder, Emergency Coordination Center. Stay alert, follow the protocols, and trust your pet's instincts. They've never been more important than they are right now. This is Dr. Marcus Calder from the Emergency Coordination Center. Please listen closely and follow these instructions. This is not a drill. If your dog starts laughing at walls, immediate isolation protocols are required. As of July 18, 2024, we have received over 300 reports of domestic animals exhibiting what can only be described as human-like laughter directed at interior walls and barriers. This represents a significant escalation from the shadow-watching behaviors documented in my previous broadcast. Based on my research spanning both the 2007 incident and current events, we are witnessing an acceleration that defies all previous patterns. The quarantine facilities are reporting unprecedented stress levels, and I must emphasize that the safety protocols I established 17 years ago may no longer be sufficient. What began as isolated cases of unusual alertness has evolved into something far more disturbing. The first confirmed wall laughter incident occurred at 3:47 a.m. on July 15th at the Henderson residence in Millbrook County. Lisa Henderson called our emergency line in a state of near panic, reporting that their golden retriever Rusty had been standing motionless in their hallway, producing what she described as the most horrible sound I've ever heard. When pressed for details, she said it sounded exactly like her deceased father's laugh, but coming from their dog's throat. The incidents have been clustering around specific geographic areas, suggesting either environmental factors or some form of transmission we don't yet understand. Dr. Jennifer Reeves at Quarantine Facility Alpha has been documenting similar behaviors among the animals we've been holding since the shadow watching phase began. Her latest report, filed yesterday evening, notes that affected animals seem to be targeting specific sections of their containment walls, almost as if they can perceive something beyond the barriers that our instruments cannot detect. A family in Pine Valley contacted us Tuesday morning after their Shiba Inu, Mochi, spent 6 consecutive hours positioned against their living room wall, producing rhythmic bursts of what the father, Kenji Yamamoto, described as celebration sounds. The laughter would begin precisely every 17 minutes, last for exactly 90 seconds, then stop abruptly. When the family attempted to move Mochi away from the wall, the dog would immediately return to the same spot and resume the behavior. Sarah Yamamoto noted that during the laughter episodes, their infant son would become extremely agitated, crying inconsolably until the sound stopped. The Yamamoto case became more disturbing when neighbors began reporting that their own dogs were exhibiting similar behaviors at exactly the same times. Mrs. Chen, who lives 3 houses down from the Yamamotos, called our hotline Wednesday evening to report that her beagle had been standing against the wall that faces the Yamamoto property, laughing in perfect synchronization with Mochi. When our field team arrived to investigate, they discovered that 5 additional dogs within a 4-block radius were all displaying identical behavior patterns, all facing walls that oriented them toward the Yamamoto residence. Later that night, more calls flooded our emergency lines from across Pine Valley. The synchronized laughter had spread to encompass an estimated 47 animals across a 6-mile area. One dispatcher described the sound as like an audience applauding something wonderful that only they could see. But the most unsettling aspect emerged when several owners reported that their dogs would pause mid-laugh to look directly at them with what multiple witnesses described as knowing expressions, as if the animals were trying to share some incredible secret. Dr. Reeves contacted me directly Thursday morning with a report that chilled me to my core. She had been conducting overnight observations of the animals in our quarantine facilities when every single affected animal began laughing simultaneously at 2:33 a.m. The sound, she said, was deafening. But what frightened her most was that the animals were all facing the same direction, toward the facility's eastern wall. When security cameras were checked, that wall showed no anomalies. However, infrared imaging revealed temperature fluctuations in a pattern that resembled what Dr. Reeves described as breathing. The Garcia family in Clear Creek provided perhaps the most disturbing account yet. Their Maine Coon cat, Princess, had been demonstrating the wall laughter behavior for 3 days when 8-year-old Sofia Garcia approached the animal during one of its episodes. According to Rosa Garcia, Princess stopped laughing immediately, turned to look at Sofia, and began purring. Then, while maintaining eye contact with the child, Princess resumed laughing but directed the sound toward Sofia instead of the wall. Rosa said her daughter's expression changed completely, becoming what she described as too old, like she suddenly understood something terrible. Sofia has not spoken since that incident, though she continues to smile constantly and has been found standing against the same wall where Princess was laughing. We have identified 4 distinct stages in the wall laughter progression. Stage 1 typically begins with the animal positioning itself against an interior wall, usually during nighttime hours. The positioning appears deliberate and purposeful, with the animal often refusing food or water to maintain its vigil. Stage 2 involves the onset of the laughter itself, which witnesses consistently describe as unnaturally human-like and often reminiscent of deceased family members or close friends. The laughter occurs in patterns, usually lasting 60 to 90 seconds with breaks of 15 to 20 minutes. Stage 3 is characterized by the synchronization I mentioned in the Pine Valley case. Animals within increasingly large geographic areas begin laughing in unison, all facing walls that orient them toward a central location. Our mapping team has identified 7 separate synchronization clusters across 3 counties, each centered on an initial case like the Yamamoto residence. Stage 4, which we are just beginning to document, involves what Dr. Reeves terms audience integration. The affected animals begin including nearby humans in their laughter performances, displaying awareness and intentionality that contradicts everything we understand about animal cognition. If you observe your pet exhibiting wall laughter behavior, do not attempt to physically redirect or restrain the animal. Our case studies show that forced interruption often triggers immediate progression to stage 4. Instead, evacuate all children from the immediate area and maintain a minimum distance of 12 feet from the laughing animal. Do not make direct eye contact during laughter episodes, as multiple witnesses report that this seems to invite the audience integration behavior I described. Contact our emergency hotline immediately, but do not remain in the same room as the affected animal while making the call. If the laughter stops suddenly and the animal turns to look at you, leave the area immediately and do not return until our response team arrives. Under no circumstances should you attempt to position yourself where the animal was facing the wall. 7 families have reported severe psychological disturbances after family members occupied these locations. Colonel Sarah Mitchell provided an update this morning regarding our containment efforts. The quarantine facilities that performed effectively during the shadow watching phase are now experiencing what she terms coordinated behavioral events. Animals in separate containment units are displaying synchronized laughter despite being housed in electromagnetically shielded, isolated chambers. Her preliminary assessment suggests that whatever is triggering these behaviors operates beyond our current understanding of animal communication or sensory perception. Agent David Cross has requested additional resources from his task force, specifically requesting consultation with specialists in what he termed unconventional phenomena. His field reports indicate that affected animals demonstrate awareness of observation equipment, often modifying their behavior when certain recording devices are present. This suggests a level of intelligence and strategic thinking that our current animal behavior models cannot explain. Dr. Heinrich Poof was briefly investigated yesterday after neighbors reported strange mechanical sounds from his property coinciding with the Pine Valley synchronization event. However, our team determined that his homemade pet attitude adjuster Mark 7 was completely unrelated to the outbreak. Dr. Poof's device, funded through his wife Martha's inheritance, appears to be nothing more than an elaborate combination of industrial fans and electromagnetic coils that has no effect on animal behavior whatsoever. The patterns we documented in 2007 are completely broken. What took weeks to develop 17 years ago is now occurring in days. The geographic spread is exponentially faster, and the behaviors themselves are more complex and seemingly purposeful. Most concerning is the integration of human family members into the animal's performances. This represents an entirely new category of interaction that I have no precedent for understanding. I must emphasize that the laughter, while disturbing to witness, appears to be serving a communicative function we do not yet comprehend. The animals are not exhibiting signs of distress or illness during these episodes. If anything, they appear to be experiencing what can only be described as euphoria. This raises the deeply troubling possibility that the laughter represents a positive response to whatever they are perceiving beyond those walls. Our facilities are reporting the first signs of structural stress. The constant, synchronized vocalizations are creating acoustic pressures that our containment systems were not designed to handle. Dr. Reeves has recommended reducing the number of animals per facility to prevent what she fears could be catastrophic resonance effects. We are implementing these measures immediately, but our capacity to house affected animals is becoming critically limited. If your pet begins laughing at walls, remember that silence is the most dangerous sign of all. When the laughter stops, something else begins. This broadcast will repeat every 4 hours on all emergency frequencies. Stay vigilant, stay separated, and whatever you do, do not look at what your dog sees in those walls. This is Dr. Marcus Calder from the Emergency Coordination Center. Please listen closely and follow these instructions. This is not a drill. If your dog starts laughing with other dogs, immediate action is required. The situation has escalated beyond our initial projections. As of this morning, July 18, 2024, we are documenting coordinated behavioral anomalies across multiple pets separated by distances that should make communication impossible. What we observed in isolated cases just 48 hours ago is now manifesting as synchronized activity between animals that have never met, living in completely separate locations. I want to be clear about something. In my 17 years of research following the 2007 events, we documented specific patterns of animal behavior during what we now call harvest cycles. Those patterns followed predictable stages, occurred within expected time frames, and affected specific bloodlines we had carefully cataloged. What we are seeing now defies every model we built from that data. These animals are not just responding to the same stimulus. They are actively coordinating with each other across impossible distances. The first multi-animal incident was reported yesterday at 3:17 a.m. by the Yamamoto family in Pine Valley. Kenji Yamamoto called our emergency line to report that his 3-year-old Shiba Inu, Mochi, had begun what he described as laughing in harmony with invisible friends. When our field coordinator asked him to clarify, Yamamoto said his dog was sitting in their living room, facing the north wall, producing the distinctive euphoric laughter we documented in yesterday's briefing. But Mochi would pause, as if listening, then resume laughing in a different rhythm. Yamamoto said it sounded like his dog was taking turns in a conversation. 20 minutes later, we received identical reports from families living 8 miles north, 4 miles east, and 12 miles south of the Yamamoto residence. All of their dogs were facing the same direction, laughing in the same rhythmic pattern, pausing at the same intervals. Mrs. Chen, whose border collie was participating from the east location, described it as, like they were all in the same room together, but we can't see the other dogs. When we asked families to move their pets to different rooms, the animals would reorient themselves, always maintaining the same directional facing, always keeping the same rhythmic pattern. Dr. Jennifer Reeves from Quarantine Facility Alpha contacted me this morning with a report that shook me to my core. She said that at approximately 3:15 a.m., just 2 minutes before the Yamamoto incident, every dog in their containment facility had simultaneously moved to the north walls of their individual isolation chambers. These are animals that have been separated for weeks, held in soundproof chambers designed to prevent any form of communication. Yet all 37 dogs began laughing together in perfect synchronization. Dr. Reeves tried to break the pattern by activating the electromagnetic interference protocols we developed after 2007. The laughter continued uninterrupted. She tried audio disruption, light pattern changes, even temperature fluctuations. Nothing affected the behavior. She said the most disturbing part was that the dogs seemed aware of her attempts to interfere. They would turn and look at her during her interventions, still laughing, with expressions she described as patient amusement, like they were, waiting for me to understand something obvious. Later that morning, we received a call that made our worst fears reality. The Henderson family, who first reported shadow-watching behavior 5 days ago, had disappeared from their Millbrook County home. Their neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, called police when she noticed their front door standing open since dawn. Officers found clear signs of hasty departure, breakfast still on the table, car still in the driveway, but no signs of struggle or forced entry. Their golden retriever, Rusty, was gone as well. The only unusual detail was that every mirror in the house had been covered with bed sheets, and the word "together" was written in condensation on the bathroom mirror. What makes this case critical to our current understanding is what Mrs. Patterson told investigators. She said that around 11 p.m. the previous night, she had heard dogs laughing from the Henderson yard. She looked out her window and saw Rusty sitting by their fence, appearing to laugh toward her house. Mrs. Patterson's own dog, a beagle named Charlie, was at that moment sitting by her fence, facing toward the Henderson yard, laughing in response. She said it looked like they were sharing a private joke across the fence. Mrs. Patterson became concerned and brought Charlie inside, but he immediately ran to the north-facing window and resumed the laughing pattern. She said the sound was wrong. Too much joy for an animal, too intentional for normal dog behavior. Around midnight, both dogs stopped laughing simultaneously, and the neighborhood fell completely silent. Mrs. Patterson said the silence felt heavy, like something big had just been decided. The pattern is spreading faster than we projected. Colonel Sarah Mitchell contacted me this morning requesting immediate backup resources. She said our standard containment protocols are failing because the affected animals are no longer acting as individuals. They're functioning as nodes in some kind of network that operates beyond our understanding of animal communication. Agent David Cross from the Federal Task Force provided an update that confirms our darkest suspicions. His teams have documented coordinated incidents across 7 counties, all following the same pattern. Families with laughing dogs receive visits from other families with laughing dogs. These visits happen during overnight hours, with entire families leaving their homes together, bringing their pets, and walking in organized groups toward rural areas. Security cameras show these processions moving in perfect formation, adults and children walking with unusual precision, dogs maintaining the same directional orientation throughout their movement. We have gathered data on the behavioral progression we are now observing. Stage 1 begins with what we're calling the gathering call. Dogs in a geographical area beginning synchronized laughter patterns while facing the same direction. This typically occurs between 3 and 4 a.m. and lasts for approximately 45 minutes. During this stage, pets cannot be distracted from their participation and show no response to food, toys, or human interaction. Stage 2 involves proximity seeking. Families report an overwhelming compulsion to bring their laughing dog outside, often describing feelings of needing to find the others or complete the circle. Affected families describe this compulsion as protective rather than threatening. They feel their dog needs to be with the other laughing dogs for safety reasons they cannot explain logically. Stage 3 is convergence. Multiple families with affected pets meet at predetermined gathering points, usually open areas like parks, fields, or parking lots. Witnesses describe these gatherings as eerily organized, with families arranging themselves in specific patterns while their dogs continue synchronized laughter. The human participants report feeling calm and purposeful during these events, describing the experience as finally understanding what our dogs have been trying to tell us. Stage 4 is departure. Entire groups, families and pets together, begin walking toward rural or wooded areas. They move in organized formations, maintaining specific spacing between groups, with dogs leading the direction of travel. Security footage shows these processions moving at exactly the same walking pace, stopping simultaneously for rest breaks, and resuming movement with precision that suggests external coordination. Based on current evidence, I am issuing the following emergency safety protocols. If your dog begins laughing in the pattern we have described, do not bring them outside under any circumstances. The compulsion to take your pet to meet other affected animals will feel natural and protective, but you must resist this impulse. Families who have participated in gathering events have not returned to their homes. Secure all exits from your house and ensure that other family members understand they should not open doors or windows for any reason during overnight hours. Affected families report that the compulsion to join gathering events feels like an urgent need to protect their pet, but resisting this compulsion is critical for your safety. Do not attempt to drive to check on neighbors or friends whose dogs may be exhibiting these behaviors. Our tracking data shows that families who leave their homes to investigate nearby incidents become participants in the gathering events and do not return. Colonel Mitchell has confirmed that vehicular access to rural areas is being restricted to prevent civilian involvement in these organized departures. If you hear multiple dogs laughing in your neighborhood during overnight hours, remain inside and contact our emergency line immediately. Do not look outside or attempt to observe gathering activities. Witnesses report that observing these events creates a compulsion to participate, especially among pet owners. Our quarantine facilities are implementing emergency protocols as coordinated raids by affected groups have successfully breached 3 installations in the past 24 hours. Dr. Reeves reported that the raiders moved with military precision, opening specific containment chambers while leaving others untouched. Security footage shows families with their pets walking directly to chambers holding animals that had exhibited compatible laughter patterns. These raids resulted in the release of 43 contained animals, all of whom departed with raiding groups toward unknown destinations. The coordination we are documenting suggests that whatever triggered the current harvest cycle has evolved beyond our 2007 understanding. Local inventor Dr. Heinrich Poof was briefly investigated after reports of unusual electromagnetic readings from his backyard workshop, but his homemade pet attitude adjuster, Mark 7, has been determined completely unrelated to current events. Dr. Poof continues to insist his device will restore normal pet happiness levels, apparently unaware that happiness is precisely what we are trying to prevent. Colonel Mitchell's latest briefing confirms our worst-case scenario. The affected animals and their families are not acting under distress or coercion. They are participating willingly in organized activities that serve purposes we do not understand. Military intervention has proven ineffective because the targets do not resist or attempt to escape. They simply wait patiently for interference to stop, then resume their coordinated behaviors. This is no longer a containment operation. Whatever called them during the 2007 harvest cycle has learned from our 17 years of preparation. It has adapted its approach to account for our quarantine protocols, our tracking systems, and our understanding of the phenomenon. The affected animals are not trying to escape from us. They are trying to collect the pets we saved from the original harvest. I need you to understand that the families participating in these gathering events are not victims in the traditional sense. They report feeling purposeful and protected while participating. They describe their pets as finally being able to fulfill important responsibilities that have been delayed for too long. This suggests that whatever intelligence is orchestrating these events has found a way to make cooperation feel like protection rather than predation. The Henderson family represented our best hope for understanding the individual family experience, and their voluntary departure confirms that traditional rescue operations will not be effective. Families are choosing to participate because their pets have convinced them that participation serves their best interests. Stay inside during overnight hours. Do not investigate sounds of multiple dogs laughing. Do not attempt to reunite with neighbors whose pets are exhibiting coordinated behaviors. And remember, if your dog starts laughing with other dogs, the safest thing you can do is nothing at all. This message will repeat every hour until further notice. Whatever is gathering them together has been patient for 17 years. Do not give it any more time to find you. This is Dr. Marcus Calder from the Emergency Coordination Center. Please listen closely and follow these instructions. This is not a drill. If your dog starts barking in reverse, leave the room immediately. I've been broadcasting warnings for 17 days now, and I need you to understand something. What we're dealing with has moved beyond anything I documented in 2007. The animals aren't just infected anymore, they're being called home, and time itself is bending around their voices. 3 hours ago, Colonel Mitchell recommended full civilian evacuation from all quarantine zones. We've lost control of the situation. The reports started filtering in yesterday morning around 4:30 a.m. Emergency dispatch in Clear Creek received the first call from Rosa Garcia, whose 8-year-old Maine Coon had been exhibiting the wall laughter symptoms for 6 days. Rosa called in tears, saying Princess was barking like a dog, but the sounds were coming out backwards. Not just reversed audio, you understand? The animal was somehow producing vocalizations that arrived before they left her throat. When Rosa played me the recording 40 minutes ago, I heard my own voice echoing from 3 hours in the future, warning about something called Operation Homecoming. I haven't issued any warning about Operation Homecoming. I don't know what Operation Homecoming is. The second incident occurred at Quarantine Facility Beta at 6:15 a.m. Technician Mike Torres had been monitoring the overnight behavior logs when every animal in the facility began producing what he described as time loop growls. The security footage shows the animals opening their mouths, but the sounds emerge from the speakers 30 seconds before their jaws move. Mike called Dr. Reeves in Building C, but Jennifer's been missing since the overnight raid. The audio equipment registered sound waves traveling backwards through the ventilation system. Mike evacuated at 6:47 a.m. The facility is now empty except for 63 animals producing warnings about events that haven't happened yet. Let me be absolutely clear about what we're seeing across all affected zones. The reverse vocalizations aren't random. They're coherent warnings delivered in temporal reverse order. A family in Millbrook County reported their golden retriever barking a countdown that ended yesterday morning, but started 3 days from now. Another household documented their cat meowing the phrase, "They're almost home," continuously for 6 hours, but each repetition arrived 17 minutes before the previous one. The animals are experiencing time differently now, and they're trying to warn us about something that's already happened in their timeline. Dr. Patricia Wong managed to get one final transmission from Facility Gamma before we lost contact. She said the animals were all facing southeast and producing harmonized reverse barking that created standing wave patterns in the air. Quote, "Doctor. Calder, they're not making sounds anymore, they're unmaking them. The acoustic patterns are subtracting silence from reality." That transmission came in at 9:22 a.m. The timestamp on her workstation showed 3:47 p.m. tomorrow. Patricia's been missing for 14 hours now, but her equipment is still receiving her own voice explaining procedures she hasn't performed yet. The Yamamoto family in Pine Valley called in their final report around noon. Their Shiba Inu Mochi had been coordinating with other dogs since last week, but now the coordination was happening in reverse sequence. Kenji described watching Mochi respond to commands from other dogs before those dogs barked them. The family tried to leave their house at 12:30 p.m., but Mochi began producing what Kenji called future barks, vocalizations that described the family's actions 20 minutes before they performed them. Their neighbor found the house empty at 3 p.m., but the reverse barking continued from the basement until 4:15 p.m. There were no animals in the basement. The sounds were coming from tomorrow. Later that afternoon, Agent Cross attempted to coordinate a facility raid with military backup from Colonel Mitchell's unit. David's last transmission came through at 5:40 p.m., but the timestamp corruption means we're not sure when he actually sent it. The audio contains David describing the raid in reverse order, starting with screaming and ending with confident mission briefing. Between the reverse timeline and the interference, we can't determine if the mission succeeded, failed, or is still happening. Colonel Mitchell's response team reached the coordinates at 6:15 p.m. and found only David's radio, broadcasting his own voice reporting mission success from what the timestamp indicated was next Tuesday. The most disturbing case came from a family outside Clear Creek whose name I'm not authorized to release. Their rescue mutt began barking in perfect reverse chronological order, starting with high-pitched panic barks and gradually descending to calm whoops. But the emotional content was inverted. The panic barks sounded peaceful, and the calm whoops carried absolute terror. The family recorded 18 minutes of this before their daughter realized the dog was predicting their conversation backwards. Every bark corresponded to something they were about to say, but delivered in reverse order and reverse emotional context. The father said it was like watching their future selves having a conversation about something terrible, but only hearing their dog's emotional responses to words they hadn't spoken yet. Based on my analysis of 17 years of research and 4 days of temporal audio distortion, we've identified 3 distinct stages of reverse vocalization behavior. Stage 1 begins with simple temporal displacement. Your pet's barks or meows arriving fractionally before they open their mouth. This creates an echo effect where you hear the sound in stereo. Your pet appears to be responding to their own future vocalizations. This stage typically lasts between 30 minutes and 3 hours. Stage 2 involves coherent reverse communication. Your pet will begin producing vocalizations that correspond to future events in your household. They might bark about dinner before you've started cooking, or meow about visitors before anyone arrives. The emotional content of these vocalizations will be inverted. They'll sound happy when warning about danger, and distressed when predicting positive events. During Stage 2, which can last anywhere from 6 hours to 2 days, your pet is experiencing your shared timeline in reverse order. Stage 3 is full temporal severance. Your pet begins producing vocalizations from multiple timeline segments simultaneously. You'll hear past, present, and future barks overlapping in impossible harmonies. Their physical body exists in your current moment, but their vocal expressions are scattered across weeks or months of subjective time. Dr. Wong's final notes suggested the animals achieve complete temporal omniscience during Stage 3. They can predict and respond to events that exist in probability space rather than actual occurrence. This is the stage where the reverse barking begins to affect local reality instead of just reflecting it. If you observe any reverse vocalization behavior from your pet, you must immediately leave the room without saying anything. The temporal audio distortion can create causality loops where your response to future barks influences past barks, trapping you in recursive conversation with tomorrow's version of your pet. Do not attempt to record the phenomenon. Electronic equipment amplifies the temporal displacement and can trap you in audio time loops lasting hours or days. Move to a room with no shared walls or ventilation with your pet's location. The reverse barking can propagate through building infrastructure and affect anyone within acoustic range. Close all doors between yourself and the affected animal. Do not attempt rescue or comfort. Your pet is experiencing temporal separation, and your presence creates additional timeline stress that worsens their condition. If you hear your own voice among the reverse vocalizations, evacuate the building immediately. This indicates you've become temporally synchronized with your pet's displaced timeline. Extended exposure can cause permanent chronological displacement in humans. Do not attempt to respond to or correct anything you hear your future self saying. Contact emergency services from outside the building and report temporal audio contamination. Under no circumstances should you approach other households reporting similar phenomena. The reverse barking creates interference patterns when multiple affected animals are in proximity. Colonel Mitchell's reconnaissance team documented harmonized reverse barking from 6 different houses on Maple Street, creating a standing wave that trapped emergency responders in a 30-minute causality loop. The responders experienced the same rescue attempt 47 times before the audio interference subsided. I need to tell you something about the broader situation. The quarantine facilities we've maintained since 2007 are being systematically breached by coordinated human assault teams. These aren't normal people. They move wrong, and they understand how to manipulate the temporal audio distortions to their advantage. Agent Cross's final transmission before we lost contact contained reversed audio of his own voice describing military tactics that haven't been developed yet. The assault teams appear to be using the infected animal's temporal displacement to coordinate attacks across multiple time streams simultaneously. They breach facilities in the present, while their actions are predicted and countered by security responses that haven't happened yet. Colonel Mitchell reported engagement with hostiles who were responding to his tactical decisions before he made them. The quarantine system wasn't just designed to contain infected animals. It was built to prevent exactly this type of coordinated reclamation effort. Every facility from Alpha through Gamma has been compromised or evacuated. Dr. Reeves, Dr. Wong, Technician Torres, and 18 other staff members remain unaccounted for. The assault teams appear specifically interested in recovering animals that were quarantined from the 2007 incident, but they're also claiming newly infected pets that match specific behavioral profiles. We believe they're completing some kind of collection protocol that was interrupted 17 years ago. The reverse barking phenomenon serves as both communication system and temporal manipulation tool for the assault teams. They can coordinate across past and future time streams to ensure mission success regardless of our defensive measures. This is why I'm recommending immediate civilian evacuation from all quarantine zones. We cannot protect you from opponents who attack from multiple points in time simultaneously. I've been wrong about everything. The 2007 events weren't contained. The quarantine system wasn't protection. It was bait. The government didn't save those animals. We were keeping them fresh until the real harvest began. And now that harvest is happening 17 years ahead of schedule, with capabilities that defy everything I understand about linear time and animal behavior. The reverse barking isn't a symptom of infection. It's the sound of time breaking down around something that should never have been delayed this long. Something called them in 2007, and we interfered. Now it's calling them home with interest, and the debt includes anyone who tried to prevent the original collection. This message will repeat every 15 minutes on all emergency frequencies until central communication is severed. If you stop hearing these broadcasts, assume Operation Homecoming has reached your area. The silence will tell you everything you need to know. Stay away from your pets. Stay away from your neighbor's pets. Stay away from anywhere you hear barking that arrives before the bark begins. God help us all. This is Dr. Marcus Calder from the Emergency Coordination Center. Please listen closely and follow these instructions. This is not a drill. If your pet starts whispering at night, do not respond. As of this morning, July 28, 2024, I am issuing what may be our final emergency broadcast regarding the animal behavior crisis. After 17 years of maintaining quarantine protocols, after decades of research, after everything we thought we understood about the 2007 events, I must report that we have failed completely. The government quarantine system has been surrendered. All facilities have been evacuated or overrun. What began 3 weeks ago as isolated incidents of unusual pet behavior has escalated into something that defies every assumption we held about containing this phenomenon. The pets are speaking now. Not barking, not meowing, but forming human words with vocal cords that were never designed for human speech. The sound is wrong in ways that will haunt you. When a golden retriever looks at you and says, "Mommy, why did you let them take me away?" In a voice that creaks and rasps because dogs cannot make those sounds, you understand that we are dealing with something far beyond our comprehension. These are not your pets anymore. Whatever intelligence speaks through them knows things it should not know, sees things that are not there, and remembers things that have not yet happened. Over the past 72 hours, reports of pets producing human speech have flooded our emergency lines from every affected region. Unlike the previous stages we documented, this whispering phenomenon appears to be the culmination point, the final stage of whatever process has been unfolding since that terrible cry emerged from deep within the earth. The calls have since stopped coming, not because the situation has improved, but because the families are no longer available to make them. A woman named Rosa Garcia in Clear Creek was among the last civilians to maintain contact with our emergency services. She had been reporting on her 8-year-old Maine Coon, Princess, since the wall-laughing phase began 2 weeks ago. Rosa called us at 11:47 p.m. on July 26th in a state of barely controlled terror. She said Princess had been sitting in the hallway outside her teenage daughter's bedroom for 3 hours, perfectly still, staring at the closed door. Then Princess began to speak. Not meowing, but producing careful, deliberate human words in a voice that Rosa described as like someone trying to talk through a broken windpipe. The cat had said, "Rosa, your daughter is not in her room." When Rosa protested that she had seen her daughter go to bed, Princess tilted her head and replied, "Check the closet. She's been there since Thursday." Rosa's daughter had indeed been missing since Thursday. She had been calling in sick to school, but Rosa realized she had not actually seen her daughter's face in 4 days, only heard her voice through the bedroom door. Rosa found her daughter's clothes arranged in her bed to simulate a sleeping form. In the closet, she discovered evidence that someone had been living there, someone who knew details about their family that no stranger should possess. The last thing Rosa reported before her phone went dead was Princess saying, "She is still here, Rosa. She is learning to be your daughter better than your daughter ever was." In another case from Pine Valley, a family with 3 dogs reported what they initially believed was a home invasion. The father, Michael Chen, called 911 at 2:33 a.m. to report that someone was in their house speaking in whispers. When police arrived, they found no signs of forced entry, no evidence of an intruder, but all 3 family dogs sitting in perfect formation in the living room, staring at the officers. As the police questioned the family, one of the dogs, a beagle named Scout, said in a small, strained voice, "Officer Martinez, your wife Sarah knows about the money you took from evidence lockup." Officer Martinez later confirmed that no one outside of Internal Affairs should have known about an ongoing investigation into missing evidence funds. The Chen family was evacuated, but by the time backup units arrived, the house was empty. Neighbors reported hearing what sounded like an entire family laughing together in perfect harmony. a sound that continued for hours after the house had been confirmed vacant. The most disturbing case came from Millbrook County, where the Henderson family's golden retriever Rusty had been exhibiting behavioral changes since the beginning of this crisis. Tom Henderson made a final call to our emergency line at 4:15 a.m. on July 27th. He was whispering into the phone, explaining that Rusty had been sitting at the foot of their bed for 6 hours, speaking in a voice that sounded exactly like Tom's deceased father. Rusty was recounting specific conversations between Tom and his father from 30 years ago, conversations that had taken place before Rusty was even born. The dog was explaining family secrets, revealing the location of hidden assets, and describing how Tom's father had died in detail that Tom had never shared with anyone. But what terrified Tom most was when Rusty began describing things his father could never have known. Events that happened after his death, people Tom would meet years later, conversations Tom would have with his own children. The last thing Rusty said before Tom's phone call ended was, "Tommy, I need you to come outside now. There are people waiting for you who understand what needs to happen next." Dr. Jennifer Reeves at Quarantine Facility Alpha sent her final report 3 days ago before all communication with our remaining facilities ceased. She documented that every animal in containment had begun producing human speech simultaneously at exactly 3:33 a.m. Not random words or mimicked phrases, but coordinated conversations in multiple languages, discussing topics ranging from nuclear physics to personal details about facility staff members' private lives. The animals knew things about Dr. Reeves's childhood that she had never told anyone, spoke about research projects that were classified beyond their security clearance, and described in precise detail the layout of other quarantine facilities they had never visited. Most disturbing was when the animals began speaking as deceased family members of the staff, using intimate nicknames and recounting shared memories that proved their authenticity. Dr. Reeves's final report stated that the animals were not being controlled or possessed, but were being spoken through by intelligences that had access to information that transcended normal reality. Based on 17 years of research spanning both the 2007 events and our current crisis, I can now identify 4 distinct stages of this whispering phenomenon. The first stage begins with whispered warnings. Your pet will speak in a voice that approximates a family member, often someone deceased, offering protective advice. Don't answer the door. Stay away from the basement. Lock your bedroom tonight. These warnings are genuine and should be heeded, as they often precede dangerous encounters with infected humans seeking to reclaim pets that should have been taken years ago. The second stage involves impossible knowledge. Your pet will begin demonstrating awareness of information they could not possibly possess. They may reveal hidden aspects of your personal history, describe events that occurred before they were born, or predict future occurrences with disturbing accuracy. This stage typically lasts 24 to 48 hours and indicates that whatever intelligence speaks through your pet has access to information sources beyond normal perception. The third stage presents reality distortion. Your pet will begin describing things that are not visible to human senses, but which may in fact be present. They may warn you about the man standing behind you when you are alone, describe rooms in your house that do not exist, or explain how your family members are not quite right today. During this stage, trust your pet's warnings implicitly, as they are perceiving threats that your senses cannot detect. The final stage is identification replacement. Your pet will begin speaking as if they are family members, claiming to be your spouse, your children, or your parents. They will insist that the real family members are somewhere else, that imposters have taken their place, or that reality itself has shifted in ways that only they can perceive. This stage indicates that the process is complete and that intervention is no longer possible. If your pet begins whispering, do not attempt to engage in conversation. Do not ask questions, do not respond to their statements, and absolutely do not follow any instructions they provide during the final stage. Leave your home immediately and do not return, even if the whispering stops. Do not take your pet with you. Do not attempt to bring other family members who insist they cannot leave their pets behind. The entity speaking through your pet is not your pet, and the family members refusing to abandon their pets may not be your family members either. Do not trust anyone who claims they can help you remove your pet safely. Over the past week, we have received numerous reports of individuals claiming to be government agents or animal control specialists offering to extract pets from affected households. These individuals are not affiliated with any government agency. They move with an unnatural precision, speak with perfect knowledge of your personal situation, and their primary goal appears to be reuniting affected pets with infected humans who have been living in wilderness areas since 2007. Colonel Sarah Mitchell's final transmission confirmed that these false officials are operating with coordinated intelligence and supernatural capabilities that render conventional law enforcement ineffective. Our quarantine facilities have been evacuated not because we were overrun by force, but because we made the decision to minimize casualties by surrendering the contained animals voluntarily. The infected humans seeking to reclaim these pets demonstrated a willingness to kill any number of facility staff members to achieve their objective. After losing contact with Dr. Reeves and 37 other specialized personnel, the decision was made to open all containment units and allow the affected animals to be taken peacefully. The quarantine system that protected us for 17 years is gone. Agent David Cross was our final field operative, and his last transmission came from the abandoned town of Silverbrook, where several affected families had reportedly fled with their pets. The transmission lasted 43 seconds and consisted primarily of screaming, punctuated by what sounded like dozens of animals laughing in perfect synchronization. The audio ended with a voice that matched Agent Cross's saying, "Dr. Calder, this is Agent Cross reporting mission success. All families have been reunited with their designated companions. Please discontinue search and rescue operations in this area." The transmission came 6 hours after Agent Cross had been declared missing, following his vehicle being found empty with the engine still running. We briefly investigated local inventor Dr. Heinrich Poof, whose backyard experiments with homemade electromagnetic devices had prompted neighbor complaints throughout this crisis. As authorities conducted final evacuations of his neighborhood yesterday, Dr. Poof was found in his workshop, completely unaware of the surrounding emergency, still attempting to fine-tune what he called his Pet Attitude Adjuster Mark 7. His device, powered by his late wife's inheritance and cobbled together from Radio Shack components, has proven entirely unrelated to any aspect of our current situation. Dr. Poof was evacuated along with his contraption, still insisting that his invention would revolutionize pet training once he resolved the frequency calibration issues. I must now share what I believe to be the truth about our situation, though it contradicts everything I understood about the 2007 events. The harvest cycle was never about taking pets randomly. It was about collecting specific bloodlines for purposes we still do not comprehend. Our quarantine system interrupted that process by containing the targeted animals, but we did not stop it. We merely delayed it while the entity behind these events adapted its approach. The cry that emerged from deep within the earth 3 weeks ago was not random. It was a summoning call directed at the pets we thought we had saved and the humans who had been changed during the 2007 events. Those infected humans have been living in wilderness areas for 17 years, maintaining just enough of their original personalities to avoid detection, while serving as caretakers for something that required specific animal bloodlines to complete an objective we were never meant to understand. The expanded targeting we have observed, the pets being taken from families who were not affected in 2007, represents an adaptation strategy. If the entity cannot retrieve the original bloodlines, it will settle for suitable alternatives while ensuring the process cannot be interrupted again. The whispering phase is not just the final stage of pet corruption. It is a communication system designed to facilitate the reunion process between affected animals and their designated human caretakers. The impossible knowledge your pets demonstrate comes from the same source that has been guiding the infected humans for 17 years. The reality distortions they describe are not hallucinations, but perception of a reality that exists parallel to our own, where the rules of physics and time operate differently. I was wrong about everything. We never contained the phenomenon. We never saved those animals. We simply forced it to wait and adapt while we remained ignorant of its true scope. The 2007 events were not an invasion or an infection. They were a harvest interrupted. And now, 17 years later, that harvest is being completed with an efficiency that demonstrates how thoroughly we were outmaneuvered by an intelligence we never understood. This broadcast is being transmitted on all emergency frequencies and will repeat every hour until our power systems are shut down. If you are hearing this message and your pet has not yet begun whispering, leave your home immediately and head for the designated safe zones established in major metropolitan areas. Do not wait for official evacuation orders. Do not attempt to bring pets with you. Do not trust anyone who insists they cannot leave their pets behind. If your pet has begun whispering, it is too late for evacuation. You are being prepared for integration with a system that has been operating in parallel to our world for 17 years. Your pet is not speaking to you. It is speaking through you to confirm that the process is complete. God help us all. This is Dr. Marcus Calder signing off from the Emergency Coordination Center, which will cease operations at dawn. To anyone who survives what comes next, remember that we tried to warn you, and we failed because we never understood what we were truly fighting. This message will repeat until transmission ends.